So basically, I chose this name for my presentation, Tongues and Representing the Indigenous Knowledge, because I feel like it's very underspoken about the indigenous knowledge we have in our region, whether we're talking about the Africa or the Middle East. All the ancient civilizations and the ancient world is having a lot of richness in their indigenous knowledge, especially when it comes to dealing with natural resources. And we're going to talk more about this, but in a nutshell, we're going to focus more on how the colonization has taken the narrative to be Western narrative when we talk about sustainability, while the narrative about sustainability and environment, it originates from our cultures and our history in Africa and in the Middle East, and how our history is very rich of those examples. And then this is what we're trying to do here together in this program, to take the narrative back to us. So bring stories home. This is what we're going to talk about today. But before we start, please scan this QR code, and I would love to know more who is in the room. I know that we have some participants from Kenya, from Nigeria, from Egypt, and maybe from other countries as well. And I would love to know. I'm not sure if you had the chance to scan. Let me keep it one for more time. And yeah, did everyone scan this?
That's okay. It's back. It wasn't showing at first. It's showing now.
Yeah. Perfect. Okay, let's move to the other screen to see who is really in the who is with us in the room here. Yes, this one. Great. So I see only 2 people had joined. There are more people joining with the QR code to tell us their responses. We have 3 questions in a row to respond to. I'm waiting until we're at least 5 or 7.
Okay, Rama says she couldn't even scan it.
Yeah, you can see the QR code. If you didn't have time to scan, you can see it on the screen now. Let me know if it's not working or anything, because I'm really looking forward for more responses from your side. Otherwise, if it's not working, we can just use the chat box, if this can be our plan B. So anyway, we can show the questions, and whether you can, if you already scanned the QR code, please feel free to respond to the questions on the screen, or you can also, if you have some technical problem, you can share on the chat box. Anyway, we have 4 joiners, but we have the rest of the people on the app. Okay. Okay, some people cannot scan it, but then maybe we can move to the first question. Okay, so the first question is, who is here in the room? From which country are you coming from? Kenya, Egypt, Nigeria. We should be having some, and also keeping an eye on the screen. Yeah, Shami 24 is from Kenya, and then Ibrahim from Egypt. Okay, thanks a lot for sharing the link. Yes, in case you couldn't scan. Okay. Maybe we can then move to the next question. I can see the people are very...
I have shared my answer on the link, but I don't see it here. Or can you see it? Because I've picked Egypt, but I don't see Egypt.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yes, okay. We have 3 responses from Egypt. We have already 8 people on the 8 people in the right. 1 more from Kenya and 1 from Nigeria. Great. Okay. Maybe then we can move to the next question. So the next question is, what is your status? Are you originally a storyteller or an environmental activist or both together, or you're new to both? That's very important thing to know, because then in the session we'll be knowing more about how the activists give their messages and how the storytellers are giving their messages, and then how can we merge both together in our local languages. It's very, very, very nice. I see a lot of responses saying that you are both together. Great. Okay, that's already promising. Then let's move to the last question. What do you expect from today's session? You can also write something on the some people learning about the impact, interesting discussions. Already some active people moved to the question early. Cool. Okay, maybe I can stop here and then I can go and new insights. Great. And for myself, I'm expecting to hear more discussions from your side and reflections on the content we're discussing today. Okay, perfect. Okay, I can stop this here and then go back to our screen. Come on. Great. Okay. Okay, so basically today we're going to discuss 4 main topics. We're going to start by decolonizing the knowledge and the modern knowledge about sustainability and environment versus the indigenous knowledge. Because before we start talking about the language itself, whether it's English, French, Arabic, Swahili, or whatever, we have to know or to discuss more about where our knowledge comes from, where the stories and the narrative come from. And then we're going to focus more about the languages and the culture and how our local languages are a direct reflection of what our culture represents and how it differs from a place to another. So it's not only different letters, but it's also reflecting a lot about the habits and the behavior of the people. And then localizing examples and how in our stories we have to use very local examples so that it can resonate with the people and bringing our stories home. And then the last one, we're going to talk about faith and activism. I think many of the people living in Africa are really practicing the religions in a different way. And from here, we can use it as a great channel to make our stories effective and resonating with the people. And this we will be discussing more about. I think already Ayra had already given you a great introduction about myself, but basically I'm an engineer, but I never worked as an engineer, and I always loved to work on developing of the community. And I worked as an plastic exhibition guide in 2015, and then as she said, I traveled to India to do my master's in sustainability, worked for a business incubator, and I started Banlastic, and then since then I'm working in Banlastic and as a green consultant. And why I'm giving this session? Because I really love the stories. And this picture is what basically inspired me to start Banlastic. Because who does not love the story? Every human being, we love hearing the stories of each others. And this is what really have an impact on us and changing on our mindsets. I basically chose India to do my master's in sustainability for the same reason I just started in the beginning, because I believe that there is so much wisdom and knowledge embedded in the local and in the indigenous cultures and civilizations that we can learn from more than Europe and more from America. And this is why I did my master's there, and I thought that there could be great learning or knowledge exchange between the two countries, especially if I'm planning to go back and work in Egypt. We can skip this one and then directly go to the first point we're going to talk about, decolonizing the knowledge. Who had seen this picture before? Is everyone aware of the SDGs? You can give me emotions. Yes, I see Rana had given me a thumbs up. Does everyone knows this picture? So in just one line, the SDGs or the Sustainable Development Goals are developed by the UN Union of many countries in the world. They believe that if these goals were achieved by the 2030, the world was going to be more sustainable, more happy, more peaceful. The people will be having more welfare. But the question is, did it all start here? Like, is the origins of the sustainability and the first people who talk about the sustainability started when the UN had started talking about the Sustainable Development Goals and the environmental preservation? Actually, the answer is definitely no. And this is something I always love and fall in love saying in my presentation. The sustainability did not start with the UN Convention or the Sustainable Development Goals. The origin of the sustainability started again from the ancient civilization. Giving just 3 examples of some ancient civilization. For example, if I'm talking about Egypt, in the ancient Egyptian temples, there are many statements guiding people to preserve the natural resources we have. For example, you cannot pass to the other world after death if you are polluting the Nile River water, and if you're not preserving the environment, and it should be, and if you're not kind enough to the animals and the resources we're having around. So this is all a great education for the people at that time that originates our connection to the environmental preservation. And then we move to the other civilization in the Indus Valley in India, and how the man is forbidden to exploit the natural resources, responsibility for nature, and this reflects a good karmic consequences if you're not dealing with the environment and the animals as it should be and as kind as it should be. And then moving to the last part, but that's not everything. I'm just taking few examples of the ancient civilization about talking about the Native Americans, the first one who had practiced sustainable agriculture, and how they have this knowledge embedded and inherited from generation to the other. But then, if we're saying that the old world and the old civilization in different places in the world were practicing this, and we're having the environment as something very holy, so what's happened? So this picture is a very famous picture of the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, when they started to invent the machine. Everything then has started to collapse. Everything had just focused on money, regardless the people welfare, regardless how our natural resources and how this is going to is it exploited. Did anyone hear about or come across the concept of the environmental justice? You can unmute yourself and please share with us. Do you think how the environmental justice started, or what is the environmental justice from your point of view? Can anyone mute herself or himself and share their perspective about this? There is no right and wrong. You can just share what you feel that, maybe that's the answer. What is environmental justice? Yeah, okay, Rana, I heard about climate justice. Okay, maybe Rana, you can tell us even what have you heard about the climate justice? Iman, please go ahead, or Rana, whoever ready.
Okay, I think Rana.
I hope you're doing good. Sorry to interrupt, Yaira.
Okay.
Thank you, Manar, again for the session. For me, environmental justice is just the ability of everyone to be able to access their resources without hindering of any government or of any groups in the society. So we all have the ability, no matter our social class or economical class, we all have the ability to access the resources and to access different resources provided by the environment.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Iman. Rod was also sharing climate justice means ensuring that the impacts and solutions of climate change are fair, especially for the most vulnerable communities. Great. Many people think about that the environmental justice, or the talks about the environmental justice started from the West again, because there are many protests happening with the environmental activists in the West talking about environmental justice. But actually, environmental justice has a very interesting story. This picture is from a protest in North Carolina in 1982, and basically North Carolina is a state in the U.S. that's mostly inhabited by African Americans, and the other white states around this place were using the North Carolina as a dumping site for their waste in the being a collection for all their waste. So from there, many people were objecting, and they were saying that the Black Americans or the African Americans are also having the right of healthy environments. And from here came the voice of the people that they need environmental justice, equal access of natural resources, regardless our color, our origin, or anything. So just to close this part, talking about the sustainability and the environment, it had started millions of years ago from the old civilizations. We are, and when I say we, I mean people in Africa and in the MENA region and in the old civilizations in general. We are the originators of talking about the environment and environmental justice. So please, if anyone's saying that sustainability started with the SDGs, please say no, that this is a very wrong narrative that needs to be corrected. When I talk about languages and culture, maybe I wouldn't use the QR code if it's not working, and if everyone is not very interactive there. Please tell me in your local language, how do you say bon appetit? If you are wishing someone to having a nice meal, how do you say it in the local language? And maybe in our context on this session today, we say it more in Arabic and Swahili. And if you have also other local languages, please share in the chat box. How do you say it in your local language if you're sharing this? I would love to hear also people from who are speaking Swahili, because maybe you're going to correct if I did it wrong, if in the next slides I did my best, but let's see. Yeah.
So in the slang Egyptian, we would say bilhana wa
right, okay. Can you write it in the chat box, because it's very important to keep it, also see it in front of us in the Latin letters. So there are different ways to say it in Arabic, and also there are different ways to say it in Swahili. So can we have some, maybe one or two contributions? How do you say bon appetit for someone who's, eating, inviting someone to eat? Because come on guys, I told you I'm going to learn from you today. Let's see if of internet researchers my skills are good enough or not. Okay, so that's an Arabic or an Egyptian Arabic accent. Okay, maybe if the next slides you have comments or add-ons, please feel free to add also in the chat box. I would like to go faster in the presentation so that I can leave space for you if you have any questions. Meshi. So in Swahili, when you say bon appetit, you say karibu chakula, and the literal translation of this word means come and share the food, or welcome to our food, and it originates from the generosity of the African or West Africa culture of inviting everyone to the food. If the food is there, that everyone is invited, even if you are in your Porsche or you are just a very poor person. Always people are invited to share the food together, and there is so much pleasure and generosity in sharing the food. So here, when we say karibu chakula, where it's not simply bon appetit, because bon appetit is just representing the Western culture, but when we say it in our local language in Swahili, it reflects a lot of generosity, and it talks a lot about the culture we are coming from. And yes, so also Abdul Jabbar had shared his one in Hausa. Okay, great. That's a great input. In Nigeria, you say Zuka si abinisi. Can you unmute yourself and say it nicely? If it's easy for you, I would love to hear it in your local language. If it's easy for you, please feel free and jump in. But that's interesting also to Google what it means with the very literal translation. if we're talking about, this is about the Swahili, and if we're talking about the Arabic, thanks a lot for sharing the one of the meanings. How do you say bon appetit in Arabic? So, for example, in the Lebanese dialect, they say sahtin, and then in Egyptian, we say bilhana wa shifa or siha wa afia. And all of them are talking about wishing health for the people, joy and healing, enjoying the food and health and wellness. And that's also very common in the Arab or in the Middle Eastern culture of, again, being very generous, inviting people for food. And like in the Middle East, it's like the whole gathering is always about the food, about the sharing the food together and distributing the food for charity. And this is a very important core concept that also reflects a lot about the local culture. So it's not simply a word that to translate it. So when someone tells you bon appetit, simply no, that translation cannot simply be something in Arabic or in Swahili, because our words are having so much deeper meanings than this. Okay, great. We're having more contributions in the chat box. But from here, I really love to stop also about the French translation of bon appetit. How did the word bon appetit started? And very interestingly, now it's very commonly used in the West. But if you Google or search more about how this word started and where it originates in the French language, it started actually in the medieval time, in the area between 5th and the 15th century, in the time when Europe was living in darkness, when there were so much airborne diseases and foodborne diseases and many famines happening in Europe at that time. So it became very common or something very unlikely if someone is eating without appetite. So what they are using it because it also is to very dark history that used to exist in Europe at some point. So the question is, if we want to wish someone a good meal, why would we use a word, a vocabulary that originates from a very different culture, representing very different era and circumstances and history, while our culture and our language is very rich in very beautiful meanings, reflecting what we have locally and the richness we have in our cultures. Just a very small example, you can have many examples of saying the greetings and saying goodbye. You'd find extraordinarily beautiful meanings in our local languages. And from here we can move to this part, and then we can say that the language and the society and the language, how it describes a lot of the societal context and that the society operates and can relate to. And because the West and the colonization had seen always how rich our civilizations are since the beginning, since even before coming to our countries until now, they were very aware of how the influence and the strength of our culture can kick them out, basically. And in case we were be able to, or if they were be able to delete our local narrative, this is so much weakness that can persist in our society when we forget who we are and when we forget what our culture and society operates on. If we say that we have an environmental message to say, and then we're also having environmental activists that wants to say this message, and then the community stays here. The activists are using very hard technical languages or terms that the community cannot surpass and understand, and a block stays between the message and the community because we're just using the very wrong language. The language, say it can be a language, like literally a language and the alphabets, and it can also be examples. If we're using examples that the community cannot relate to, then still the blocks persists. But here comes the magic of the storytellers, taking the messages set by the activists and making them in their very magical mix and their very localized context, and then they transform it or they pass it to the community. So there is a great potential we have as storytellers to pass the most hard cases or terms or messages to be part or to reach the community. Just taking very small examples. For example, about the words, if I'm saying hello, is very different than when I say jumbo. Jumbo is saying hi or hello in Swahili, and it's a very, very friendly context. If you're in your local language, if you start your story with hello, it's very much weaker to connect with the people than if you started it with a jumbo. Because when you say jumbo, or when you say Assalamu alaikum in Arabic, or if you say salam, sabah al khair in Arabic, people can really resonate and they can feel that you are talking with their language, with their pain, with their stories. Then they can start listening to you. And then when the second part, if you were talking about the idiom, so it's not only the literal alphabets or the words translation. If I'm just saying a statement, is very different than if I say it in a local saying. Again, like I'm just more using the Arabic examples because I know more about it, but feel free if someone is speaking different languages to share their experience. But there are many local sayings that are idioms that their meaning is much stronger than if you just say it simply in an Arabic internet-based statement. So again, using the local sayings and the idioms, and again the local knowledges. I'm just giving an example. If we're talking about the zero waste lifestyle and having the reusable bottle, that's great, and many of us as activists are using this now. It's very different than when you say that you're using the clay bottle, which is something also very embedded in the old civilization, that they used to use the clay bottle as a way for natural preservation or natural refrigeration of the water in their own community, and people in the countryside are still using it till now. So again, thinking what are the examples that can people relate to, rather than just using a Western examples. And then maybe the last but not least, the social context. What messages can connect with the people? I remember in our cleanups in Belastic, because we go to many beach cleanups, when we used to give awareness on the beaches about how plastic is not good for the wildlife and the marine animals and the turtles and the fish, people cannot really resonate. They didn't really care, But we see that there is something shining in their eyes once we start to talk about how the plastic can cause your kids cancers, how microplastic, when it enters our food chain, it can affect our health, So again, using and thinking, being smart enough to see what examples that the people cannot say no to. Like, who does not want their family to be healthy? Who does not want their kids to be illness-free, right? So when we say it in our language, there is so much emotions that reach, and as a result, trust. And when we say it in our language, our body language and our expression evolve and come to the surface. And there is so much you can transmit, not only vocally, but also by how your body looks like. And also when you say it our language, we can say throw jokes. Because jokes also is a very, very strong tool, how people can remember your message when you say it in a joke way. And for sure, and I believe everyone would agree on this, in every culture they have their own jokes system. So when you say a joke in Swahili, maybe if someone speaking Swahili but from a different language, he wouldn't get it. And the same for the Egyptian, for example, or for the Arabic. And then coming to the third part, I'm not sure how much time. I think we're good in time. We're not very late. Anyway, we're not.
The time is actually up. Yeah, I do want. Your time is actually up. But okay. I'll just give it 5 minutes extra. Then we have 10 minutes.
Perfect. We're only having 5 minutes. So the third point we would like to move to. We talked about the language itself, and then how the culture is reflected in the language, but then now we're talking about localizing the examples and bringing the stories home. So for example, in our curriculum, when we're studying science and we learn about the climate change, we always were taught about how the polar bear is affected by the climate change. But actually growing up and knowing that none of us had seen the polar bear actually, because everyone living in Africa we don't have a polar bear. So why don't we just use local examples that the people can resonate with? Why don't we have a picture like this, for example, from Alexandria, and then the people, when the Egyptian people, when they see it, for example, they feel the pain of having the city sinking, because everyone can see this. Can they say that this is from Alexandria? Or, for example, this picture is from Sudan, and how the floods as a result of the climate change is affecting the people. So again, using the local example is a very strong tool in also not only using the language, but also using the example that the people know. They see it everywhere around them, so they can resonate with the story you are saying. Again, the first picture here, if we're talking about zero waste, is about how in Europe they segregate the waste. But the second one is about sorting the waste in Africa again. So we can see the man in the picture in different places in the streets collecting the trash, trying to sort it. But the first one is just very, very far away from our society. So if you talk about a picture like this, people cannot really relate to it. Maybe I can move faster. We can later on pass you the presentations to see more local examples I've taken from India and taken from Egypt. But maybe I can then move now to the last point, which is the faith and activism. There are many organizations now in the environmental activism are using faith as a way to enhance the knowledge of the people about the environmental preservation, because in the Quran and the Bible there are many verses asking the people to be like responsible for the natural resources. I'm just getting one example from the Quran, another one from the Bible, saying and confirming the importance of having natural resources and the environment as something we have to preserve, and we do not need to exploit it. And for example, Ummah for Earth is one project under Greenpeace International using faith in a way of environmental activism. So whatever, like many verses talking about the food waste, we should not have the food waste, or waste in using the resources, on the corruption of earth, or conscious consumption in general. I think I need to stop here, and then please feel free if you have any questions to let me know now, or definitely you can email me anytime, and we can talk more about this. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mana. Please, can we appreciate her for the presentation? Can I see some emojis? Let's appreciate her for the presentation. Yes. This is our time for questions. So if we have any questions for her, we don't have a lot of time for questions. Yes, Bean, thank you for an insightful presentation. So let's have our questions for her quickly so that we are able to beat time. So any questions? I actually love how practical the presentation was.
Yes. Thanks a lot, Yarier.
You're welcome. Yeah, Abdul Jabbar says this very insightful presentation. Rana, please unmute and speak.
Hi, Manar. Thank you so much for the session today. It was very engaging and interactive, so thank you for that. I just want to ask about an aspect you were talking about, like about talking to the people in their own language, and using the expression, the example that they have. But what if from a different culture or from a different background, but I want to engage with them? So I might try to pronounce some of the words they say, but I might make mistakes specifically with jokes or terms. So it might be seen as an offense to them. So how can I, do it in a safe way, or how do you suggest to do it if I'm not very familiar with that culture, but still I want to engage in it, but I don't want to cause any offense or something like that? Or it's better to highlight from the beginning, or what should I do? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rano. I think simply what I'm so happy that you did not think directly about using AI, because AI, as you may all assume, it's not giving any accurate results. Even while preparing for my presentation, for sure, I depended somehow on AI, but I was still in doubt. I had to check many resources before confirming this. And then, as I said, as I just expressed in the beginning of my presentation, that I would love that if anyone can correct to me. But I think in your case, if you are giving an offline presentation and it can be like having more time, use the knowledge of your colleagues from the same culture to go through on what you have prepared. For sure, it can be 100% the negative result if you are giving wrong examples or wrong idioms, and it's very common. It can be funny as well if you're giving wrong examples. But for sure, ask about the review from your mates from the same culture. And if you didn't have the chance for this, open the floor and encourage the listeners or the participants to give you their insights, because you have a little bit, because you're not from the same culture. So acknowledging and being humble about this, it's truly one of the strengths of any speaker, I believe.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mana.